It was a chilly Saturday afternoon, the kind where you just want to stay inside and feel warm. I was a regular guy named Jake, sitting in my little house on Elm Street. My house wasn't big or fancy, just a small place with a red door and a tiny porch. I liked it, though. It felt like home. That day, I had a fire going in my fireplace. I grabbed a log from the pile by the wall, tossed it in, and watched the flames jump up. Smoke curled out of my chimney, slow and lazy, floating up into the gray sky. It looked cozy, right? That's what most people would think. If you saw it, you'd probably say, "Wow, Jake's got it nice today." But not everyone thought that way. Nope. Not Karen. Oh no, not HOA Karen. She wasn't like most people. She lived right next door to me in a big white house with perfect flowers and a shiny mailbox. Karen wasn't just any neighbor, she was the bossy kind. The kind who always had something to say. She was part of the HOA, which stands for Homeowners Association. That's a group of people who make rules for the neighborhood, like how tall your grass can be or what color your house can be painted. Karen loved those rules. She loved them so much, she'd walk around with a little notebook, writing down anything she didn't like. And guess what? She didn't like me. See, I was new to Elm Street. I moved in a few months ago, and from the very first day, Karen decided I didn't fit in. To her, I was just the new kid. That's what she called me sometimes, like I was some little boy who didn't know anything. She didn't care that I was a grown-up with a job and a house. In her eyes, I didn't belong in her perfect neighborhood. She'd look at my little house with its chipped paint and my old truck parked out front, and her nose would wrinkle up like she smelled something bad. That Saturday, I was minding my own business. I wasn't bothering anyone, just sitting by my fire, maybe sipping some hot chocolate. The smoke from my chimney was drifting up, making little swirls in the air. It wasn't a lot of smoke, just enough to show the fire was going. Most folks would think it was no big deal. Maybe they'd even smile and say, "Oh, Jake's staying warm today." But Karen? Oh boy, Karen didn't see it that way. She saw that smoke, and it was like a red flag waving in front of her face. To her, it wasn't just smoke, it was trouble. Now, let me tell you a little more about Karen so you can picture her. She was tall and skinny, with hair that was always pulled back tight in a bun. She wore big sunglasses, even when it wasn't sunny, and she had this loud voice that could scare a dog away. Every time she walked by my house, she'd stop and stare. Sometimes she'd shake her head, like I'd done something wrong just by existing. Other times, she'd pull out her phone and take pictures of my grass, my truck, even my trash cans. I'd see her out there, muttering to herself, and I'd just wave and smile. That made her madder, I think. Karen wasn't just nosy, she was always complaining. If my grass was a tiny bit too long, she'd knock on my door and tell me to cut it. If I left my truck in the driveway instead of the garage, she'd leave a note on my windshield. One time, she even complained that my dog barked too loud, except I don't even have a dog. I'd just laugh and say, "Okay, Karen, because what else could I do?" She thought she was the queen of Elm Street, and I was just some guy who didn't deserve to live next to her. But here's the thing Karen didn't know, I wasn't as ordinary as she thought. Nope. I had a secret. A big one. The kind of secret that would make her jaw drop if she ever found out. She looked at me and saw a guy with an old truck and a little house, but she didn't see the real me. She didn't know what I was hiding, and I wasn't about to tell her, not yet. I liked keeping it to myself, letting her think whatever she wanted. It was almost fun, watching her stomp around, clueless about who I really was. That chilly Saturday, I had no idea what was coming. I was just sitting there, enjoying my fire, when I glanced out the window. And there she was, Karen. She was standing on her lawn, staring at my chimney like it was the worst thing she'd ever seen. Her arms were crossed, and her face was all scrunched up. I could tell she was mad. Really mad. The smoke wasn't even blowing toward her house, it was going straight up. But that didn't matter to Karen. She saw it, and she hated it. I leaned back in my chair and watched her for a minute. She didn't know I was looking. She pulled out her phone, and I could see her fingers moving fast, like she was typing something. Or maybe calling someone. I didn't think much of it at first, Karen was always calling somebody to complain. But then I saw her put the phone to her ear, and her mouth started moving. She was yelling. Even through my window, I could hear bits of it. Smoke, she shouted. It's everywhere. I rolled my eyes. Everywhere. Really? It was just a little puff from my chimney. I figured she'd get tired of it and go back inside. That's what she usually did, yell for a bit, then give up. But not this time. Oh no, this time was different. Karen wasn't just mad, she was on a mission. She started pacing back and forth on her lawn, still talking on the phone. Her voice got louder and louder. I couldn't hear all the words, but I caught some of them. Emergency, she said. Right now. Emergency. Over chimney smoke. I almost laughed out loud. Who calls that an emergency? I stood up and peeked out the window again, just to see what she'd do next. She was still pacing, waving her free hand in the air like she was trying to shoo the smoke away. It wasn't even near her. The wind was blowing it the other way, toward the empty lot on my other side. But Karen didn't care about facts. She cared about being right. She cared about making me look bad. And she was going to do something big, I could feel it. Now, I could have gone outside and talked to her. I could have said, "Hey, Karen, it's just choices of fire. No big deal." But I didn't. Why? Because I knew it wouldn't work. Karen didn't listen to anyone. She'd just yell louder and tell me I was wrong. So I stayed inside, watching her like she was a show on TV. And let me tell you, it was about to get good. See, Karen thought she had all the power. She thought she could boss me around because I was new and quiet. She didn't know I was more than just a guy with a fireplace. She didn't know I had something up my sleeve, something that would turn this whole thing upside down. I wasn't scared of her yelling or her phone calls. I wasn't even mad. I was waiting. Waiting for the perfect moment. The smoke kept curling up from my chimney, soft and slow. It was peaceful, in a way. But to Karen, it was war. She stopped pacing and glared at my house, her phone still pressed to her ear. I couldn't hear everything she was saying now, but I saw her lips moving fast. She looked like she was ready to explode. And then she pointed at me, at my chimney, at the smoke like she was accusing it of a crime. I sat back down and took another sip of my hot chocolate. Whatever Karen was up to, I wasn't worried. Not one bit. She could yell all she wanted. She could call whoever she wanted. It didn't matter. Because I had my secret, and it was bigger than anything she could throw at me. She thought she was the smart one, the one in charge. But she was wrong. So wrong. That Saturday wasn't just chilly, it was the kind of cold that makes your nose tingle when you step outside. The leaves on Elm Street were all gone, blown away by the wind, and the trees looked like skinny sticks against the gray sky. My little house sat there, snug and warm, with its red door and a few cracks in the steps leading up to the porch. I liked those cracks, they made the place feel real, not all perfect like Karen's house. Inside, I had a big chair by the fireplace, a fuzzy blanket, and a mug of hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. It was my day off, and I was going to enjoy it, no matter what. The fireplace was my favorite thing about the house. It wasn't fancy, just a brick box with a chimney sticking out the roof, but it worked. I'd stack logs inside, light a match, and watch the fire grow. That day, the flames were crackling, popping every now and then, and the room smelled like wood and warmth. The smoke going up the chimney was thin, not thick or black like you'd see in a cartoon. It was just enough to let you know the fire was alive. I'd look out the window sometimes and see it drifting up, and it made me smile. But Karen? She didn't smile. Not at smoke, not at me, not at anything fun. Her house was different from mine. Hers was big, with 2 floors and a garage that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Her grass was always cut short, like she measured it with a ruler. Her flowers were bright red and yellow, lined up in perfect rows. She even had a little sign by her door that said, "Welcome," but I don't think she meant it. Not for me, anyway. Karen had been watching me since the day I moved in. I remember it clear as day. I was carrying boxes from my truck, and she came over with her notebook. "You can't park there," she said, pointing at my truck. I looked around, there was no sign, no rule, nothing. "It's my driveway," I told her. She huffed and walked away, but I knew she wasn't done. After that, it was one thing after another. My trash cans were too close to the curb. My mailbox was the wrong color. My porch light was too bright. She'd write it all down in that notebook and give me these looks, like I was breaking every rule in the world. That Saturday, though, it was the smoke that set her off. I don't know why it bugged her so much. Maybe she didn't like the smell, even though it wasn't strong. Maybe she just needed something to complain about. Or maybe she wanted to show me who was boss. Whatever it was, she was out there on her lawn, ready to make a scene. I could see her from my window, standing there in her long coat and those big sunglasses. She looked like a detective in a movie, but not a good one. More like the kind who gets it all wrong. I didn't turn the fire off. Why should I? It was my house, my fireplace, my Saturday. I wasn't hurting anyone. The smoke wasn't even going near her, it was blowing the other way. But Karen didn't care about that. She cared about winning. She cared about making me feel small. So she stood there, yelling into her phone, and I just watched. I wasn't mad. I wasn't scared. I was curious. What was she going to do this time? Call the HOA? Call the fire department? Call her mom? I didn't know yet, but I knew it'd be something big. My secret made it easier to stay calm. See, I wasn't just Jake, the guy with the old truck and the little house. I was more than that. A lot more. Karen thought she knew me, but she didn't. She saw what she wanted to see, a quiet guy who didn't fight back. But there was stuff about me she'd never guess. Stuff I kept hidden, like a treasure buried deep. I wasn't ready to show it yet, but I knew it was there, waiting for the right time. And maybe, just maybe, that time was coming soon. So I sat there, cozy by my fire, while Karen lost her mind outside. The smoke kept curling up, the flames kept dancing, and I kept smiling. She could yell all she wanted. She could call whoever she wanted. It didn't change a thing. I had my secret, and it was bigger than her rules, bigger than Elm Street. So, what do you think Karen's about to do? Is she going to storm over and bang on my door? Is she going to call someone crazy? Stick around, this gets good. The story's just starting, and trust me, you're in for a wild ride. Karen stormed over that day, her phone already in her hand. She was moving fast, like a tornado coming straight for my house. Her eyes were locked on my chimney, and she glared at it like it was a crime scene, like someone had done something awful and she was the detective ready to catch them. The smoke was still curling up into the sky, soft and gray, but to Karen, it was the worst thing ever. She stopped right at the edge of my yard, her feet planted on the grass, and pointed at the chimney with one bony finger. "That smoke," she screeched, her voice so loud it made my ears hurt. "It's ruining my air. I'm calling 911, this is an emergency." I just stood there, leaning on my porch railing, watching her. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. She looked so silly, standing there with her phone and her big sunglasses, yelling about smoke like it was a monster attacking her house. I mean, it was just a little smoke. It wasn't even blowing her way, the wind was pushing it toward the empty lot on the other side of my house. But Karen didn't care about that. She never cared about what was real. She only cared about what she could complain about. I stayed calm, my arms resting on the railing. The wood felt cool under my hands, and I could still hear the fire crackling inside. Karen's voice was loud, but it didn't scare me. She'd been on my case since the day I moved in, always finding something to pick on. One time, it was my grass, she said it was too long, even though I'd cut it just a week before. Another time, it was my truck, she said it was too loud when I started it up in the morning. She'd march over with her little notebook, write stuff down, and tell me I was breaking the rules. To her, I was some nobody she could boss around, just a guy who didn't belong on Elm Street. But here's the thing, I wasn't mad. Not even a little bit. I didn't yell back or tell her to go away. I just stood there, watching her, letting her scream all she wanted. Why? Because I was paying attention. Every time she yelled, every time she waved that phone around, I tucked it away in my head. Like saving coins in a jar, I was keeping track of everything she did. She thought she was in charge, stomping around like the queen of the neighborhood, but she had no idea what was coming. Nope. Not a clue. Karen kept going, pacing back and forth on my lawn now. Her coat flapped around her legs, and her sunglasses slid down her nose a little, but she didn't care. She was too busy being mad. "This is ridiculous," she shouted into her phone. "I can't breathe with all this smoke. Someone needs to do something." I tilted my head and watched her. Who was she even talking to? The HOA? The police? Her best friend? I didn't know yet, but I could tell she was serious. She said 9/11 like it was a magic word that would fix everything. I almost laughed again. 911? For chimney smoke? That's what you call when there's a real emergency like a fire or a robbery. Not for a little puff of smoke from a fireplace. But that was Karen for you. She loved making big deals out of tiny things. She'd been doing it ever since I got here. The first week I moved in, she came over because my trash cans were out on the wrong day. "It's Tuesday," she'd said, like I'd broken a law. "Trash day is Wednesday." I just nodded and moved them, but she wrote it down in her notebook anyway. Another time, she knocked on my door because my truck made a noise when I backed it out of the driveway. "It's too loud," she'd complained. "People are trying to sleep." It was noon on a Saturday, nobody was sleeping. But Karen didn't care. She stood there with her arms crossed, telling me I needed to fix it. I said, "Okay, I'll check it," and smiled at her. That made her huff and walk away, muttering something about new people not knowing how to act. She thought I was some guy she could push around. To her, I was just Jake, the new kid with the messy grass and the noisy truck. She didn't think I mattered. She'd look at my little house with its chipped paint and my old truck parked out front, and she'd smirk like she was better than me. Her house was big and perfect, with shiny windows and a fancy car in the garage. Mine was small and simple, with a creaky porch and a chimney that smoked a little. In her eyes, that made her the boss and me the troublemaker. But I wasn't worried. Not one bit. I leaned on that railing and watched her pace, her voice getting louder every second. "Yes, an emergency," she said into the phone. "I need help right now." The smoke kept drifting up, slow and steady, and I could smell the wood burning inside. It was nice, cozy even. Karen was the only one who thought it was a problem. The other neighbors didn't care. Old Mr. Thompson across the street even waved at me earlier, like he liked seeing the smoke. But Karen? She was ready to start a war over it? I started thinking about all the times she'd bugged me. Like the day she said my mailbox was ugly. It was just a plain metal box, nothing special, but she told me it didn't fit the neighborhood. She wanted me to get a new one, a white one with flowers on it, like hers. I said, "Maybe later," and she glared at me like I'd insulted her. Or the time she said my porch light was too bright and kept her awake at night. I checked it was just a regular bulb. But she wrote it down in her notebook and told me to change it. Every time she complained, I'd just nod and say, "Sure, Karen," or "I'll look into it." I didn't argue. I didn't fight. Why? Because I didn't need to. I was watching her, remembering every word she said, every mean look she gave me. She thought I was weak because I didn't yell back. She thought I was scared because I didn't tell her to stop. But she was wrong. I wasn't weak or scared, I was waiting. Waiting for something big. Something she didn't see coming. Karen didn't know it, but I wasn't just some guy she could boss around. I had a trick up my sleeve, a secret she'd never guess. She thought she was smarter than me, standing there with her phone, calling 911 over a little smoke. But I was smarter than she knew. Every time she yelled at me, every time she wrote something in that notebook, I was keeping track. It was like a game, and she didn't even know we were playing. She kept pacing, her shoes making little thumps on the grass. "This is unacceptable," she shouted. "I deserve clean air." I raised an eyebrow. Clean air? The smoke wasn't even near her house. It was floating away, disappearing into the sky. But Karen didn't care about the truth. She cared about being loud, about making me feel small. She waved her phone around like it was a weapon, like she could use it to win. I stayed quiet, leaning on my railing. The porch creaked a little under my feet, but I didn't move. I didn't need to. Karen was doing all the work, yelling, pacing, getting madder by the second. I could see her face turning red, even from where I stood. Her sunglasses were slipping down more now, and she pushed them back up with an angry jerk. "Yes, 9/11, she said again. Hurry up. I wondered what the person on the phone was thinking. Were they confused? Were they telling her smoke wasn't an emergency? I couldn't hear their side, but I bet they were trying to calm her down. Good luck with that. Karen didn't calm down for anything. Once she got mad, she stayed mad. And right now, she was mad at me. Or at my chimney, I guess. To her, it was the same thing. The smoke kept going up, soft and gray, like it didn't care about Karen's tantrum. I liked that about it. It just did its thing, no matter what she said. I took a deep breath and smelled the wood burning. It was a good smell, warm and familiar. Karen could scream all she wanted, it wouldn't change that. She could call 911 100 times, and I'd still be here, leaning on my porch, watching her make a fool of herself. She didn't stop, though. She kept going, her voice bouncing off the houses around us. "This guy doesn't belong here," she said into the phone. "He's ruining everything." I smirked a little. Ruining everything? With a fireplace? That was a new one, even for Karen. She'd said a lot of crazy things before, but this was next level. I almost wanted to clap for her. She was putting on a real show out there. But I didn't clap. I didn't say anything. I just watched. My eyes followed her as she marched back and forth, her coat flapping, her phone glued to her ear. She thought she was winning. She thought she was going to get me in trouble. Maybe she thought the police would come and tell me to turn off my fire, or fine me, or kick me out of the neighborhood. She had no idea how wrong she was. See, I wasn't mad because I knew something she didn't. I wasn't just standing there because I was lazy or scared. I was standing there because I had a plan. Every yell she let out, every call she made, it was like she was digging a hole for herself. And I was happy to let her keep digging. She thought she was the boss, but she wasn't. Not really. Something big was coming, and she was walking right into it, step by step. Karen didn't see it. She couldn't. She was too busy being loud, too busy being mean. She thought I was a nobody, just a guy she could push around. But I wasn't. I was Jake, and I had something she'd never expect. Something that would turn this whole day upside down. She kept yelling about my smoke, but soon, she'd have a lot more to worry about. Karen didn't just stop at yelling. She started waving her arms like a windmill. Her coat sleeves flapped around, and her phone almost slipped out of her hand once, but she caught it. "This is serious," she shouted. "I can't live like this." I tilted my head and watched her. Live like what? With a neighbor who had a fireplace? It wasn't like I was blasting music or throwing trash in her yard. It was just smoke, little puffs of it, drifting up into the cold air. But to Karen, it was the end of the world. She turned toward my house and pointed again, like she wanted the person on the phone to see it through her eyes. "Look at that," she said. "It's a disaster." I looked at my chimney. The smoke was still there, curling up nice and slow. It didn't look like a disaster to me. It looked like a Saturday afternoon. But Karen had a way of making everything sound huge. She could take a tiny ant and call it an elephant. That was her talent, I guess. I shifted my weight on the porch, and the boards creaked a little louder. Karen's head snapped toward me, like she'd heard it. Her eyes narrowed behind those big sunglasses, and she stared right at me. "You," she yelled, pointing now. "This is your fault." I didn't say anything. I just gave her a little wave, like I was saying hi. That made her face turn even redder. She didn't like when I waved. It made her feel like I wasn't taking her seriously. And I wasn't, not really. How could I? She was freaking out over nothing. She went back to her phone, her voice getting sharper. "He's just standing there," she said. "He doesn't even care." That part was true. I didn't care. Not about her yelling, anyway. I cared about my fire, my hot chocolate, my nice quiet day. But Karen? She could yell until her voice gave out, and it wouldn't change a thing. I wasn't going to run inside and put out the fire just because she said so. Nope. I was too comfy for that. She kept pacing, her shoes squishing into the grass now. It was a little wet from the morning frost, and I could see her leaving little marks behind her. She didn't notice. She was too busy talking. "I've had enough," she said. "This has to stop." I wondered what she thought this was. The smoke? Me living here? Everything. With Karen, it was hard to tell. She hated so many things about me, it could have been all of them at once. I leaned a little harder on the railing and crossed my arms. The wind picked up, blowing my hair around, but it felt good. Fresh. The smoke kept going up, and I could hear the fire popping inside. It was a nice sound, way better than Karen's voice. She was still going, though. I'm not kidding, she said. Send someone now. I pictured a police car showing up, lights flashing, all because of my chimney. What would the cops say? Sorry, Jake, your fire's too cozy. I almost snorted at the thought. Karen didn't think it was funny, though. She thought it was war. She marched closer to my porch, stopping just a few feet away. You think this is a game, she snapped, glaring up at me. I shrugged. I didn't say anything, but I didn't need to. My face said it all. I wasn't scared of her. Not one bit. That made her madder. She shook her phone at me, like it was proof she was right. I'm calling 911, she said again. You'll see. I nodded, like I was saying, go ahead. She blinked at me, surprised I wasn't arguing. Then she huffed and turned away, talking into her phone again. He's mocking me, she said. This is harassment. Harassment. That was a big word for her to throw around. I wasn't doing anything, just standing there. But Karen loved big words when she was mad. It made her feel important, I guess. She kept going, walking in circles now. Her coat was flapping so much, it looked like she might take off like a bird. I deserve better than this, she yelled. I've lived here for years. That part was true. She'd been on Elm Street a long time. Mr. Thompson told me she'd been bossing people around since he moved in, and that was 10 years ago. She thought that made her special, like she owned the whole street. But it didn't. It just made her loud. I watched her circle around, and I started thinking about all the other times she'd come after me. Like the day she said my dog was too loud, except I don't even have a dog. She swore she heard barking, but it was probably just the wind or something. I told her that, and she called me a liar. Or the time she said my trash cans smelled bad, even though they were empty. She wrote that down too, like it was evidence for a big case. Every time, I just let her talk. I didn't fight back. I didn't need to. I was keeping it all in my head, every little thing she did. She thought I was weak because I didn't argue, but I wasn't. I was strong in a different way, a quiet way. And I had something she didn't know about. Something big. Something that made her yelling seem small. Days passed after that big chimney smoke fight, and Karen didn't let up. Not even a little bit. She was like a bee that wouldn't stop buzzing around me, always finding something new to sting me with. She'd march around the neighborhood with her clipboard, her pen moving fast as she wrote down violations for the HOA. That's the group that makes rules for our street, and Karen loved being the boss of it. She'd write about my smoke like it was some huge crime. She'd write about my mailbox, said it was too old and rusty. She even wrote about the way I parked my truck, saying it wasn't straight enough. Can you believe that? A truck not being straight was a problem for her. One day, she got really mad. She came stomping over to my house, her clipboard in one hand and her sunglasses sliding down her nose. She banged on my door so hard, I thought it might break. I opened it, and there she was, her face all red and her eyes glaring at me. You're a disgrace to the street, she yelled, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. Her voice was sharp, like a teacher scolding a kid who forgot his homework. She pointed at me, then at my chimney, then at my truck, like everything about me was wrong. I just stood there in the doorway, looking at her. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and smiled a little. That made her huff and puff even more, like a dragon ready to breathe fire. She turned around and marched back to her house, muttering stuff I couldn't quite hear. Probably more mean things about me. I closed the door and went back to my chair by the fireplace. I wasn't mad. Nope. Not even a tiny bit. See, I'd started noticing things about Karen, little things she didn't know I saw. And those things, they were starting to add up, like pieces in a puzzle I was putting together in my head. First, there was her fancy car. Karen had this shiny silver car that looked like it cost a lot of money. She kept it in her garage most of the time, and she'd wash it every weekend until it sparkled. But one day, I saw something weird. I was outside getting my mail, and I glanced over at her driveway. Her car was there, and it had scratches on the side, long, messy scratches, like someone dragged a key across it. They weren't there before, I was sure of it. I thought, that's strange. Karen was so picky about everything being perfect: her house, her yard, her car. Why would her car have scratches like that? She didn't say anything about it, and she didn't get it fixed right away. That made me wonder. Then there was the night stuff. I started seeing Karen sneak out sometimes, late when it was dark. I wasn't spying or anything, I'd just be up getting a glass of water or letting the cool air in through my window. One night, I saw her slip out her back door, wearing a dark coat and looking all nervous. She kept glancing around, like she didn't want anyone to see her. She walked fast down the street and disappeared around a corner. I didn't know where she was going, but it was weird. Karen was the kind of person who liked everyone to know what she was doing, especially when she was complaining. So why was she sneaking around at night? What was she hiding? And those emergency calls? Oh boy, she made them a lot. Way too much for a normal person. It wasn't just the chimney smoke day. I'd hear her on her phone other times, yelling about something being an emergency. One time, it was because Mr. Thompson's dog barked too loud. Another time, it was because some kids left a bike on the sidewalk. She'd call 911 or the HOA or whoever she could get to listen, screaming like the world was ending. I'd sit by my window and hear her voice carrying across the street, "This is serious," or "I need help now." It was always something small, but she acted like it was huge. Too many calls, I thought. Way too many. I kept quiet about all of it. I didn't tell anyone what I saw, not Mr. Thompson, not the other neighbors, not even Karen. I just watched and listened. Every time she banged on my door or wrote something on her clipboard, I'd nod and smile, like I didn't care. But I did care. I cared about figuring her out. See, I was starting to think there was more to Karen than just being bossy. She thought she was running the show, acting like the Queen of Elm Street, but I had a feeling she was walking right into a trap. A trap she didn't even see. Days turned into weeks, and Karen kept coming after me. One morning, she caught me pulling into my driveway. My truck's engine rumbled a little, and she was out there in a flash. "That noise," she shouted, waving her clipboard. "It's too loud. I'm writing this down." I turned off the truck and stepped out, giving her a little wave. "Okay, Karen," I said, nice and calm. She scribbled something fast, her pen scratching the paper like she was mad at it. "You'll hear about this," she snapped, then stormed off. I watched her go, her coat flapping behind her. Another time, she didn't like how I stacked my firewood. I had a little pile by the side of my house, neat and tidy, but she came over anyway. "That's an eyesore," she said, pointing at it like it was a pile of trash. "It's against the rules." I looked at the wood. It was just logs, nothing messy. "I'll move it if you want," I told her, keeping my voice soft. She glared at me, wrote it down, and left. I didn't move the wood. I didn't need to. She was just looking for trouble, and I wasn't going to give her a fight. But while she was busy picking on me, I kept noticing more stuff. Like one night, I saw her sneak out again. It was late, past midnight, and I was up because I couldn't sleep. I looked out my window, and there she was, creeping out her back door. She had a bag slung over her shoulder this time, and she looked even more nervous than before. She glanced left, then right, then hurried off into the dark. I stood there, watching until I couldn't see her anymore. What's she up to? I thought. It didn't make sense. Karen, the loud lady who loved rules, sneaking around like a mouse. And those scratches on her car, they were still there. I saw it again a few days later when she pulled out of her garage. The sun hit the side, and I could see the marks clear as day. Long and jagged, like someone scratched it on purpose. She didn't act like she cared, though. She just drove off, her sunglasses on, pretending everything was fine. But it wasn't fine. Something was off, and I was starting to put it together. The emergency calls kept happening too. One afternoon, I heard her yelling on her phone again. I was outside sweeping my porch, and her voice came floating over from her yard. "It's an emergency," she said. There's a cat in my tree. I peeked over and saw a little gray cat sitting on a branch, looking happy as can be. Karen was pacing below it, her phone pressed to her ear. "Send someone now," she demanded. I shook my head. A cat in a tree wasn't an emergency, it was just a cat. But she stayed on the phone until a fire truck showed up. The firefighters got the cat down, and Karen acted like she'd saved the day. I watched from my porch, quiet as ever. All these little things, the scratches, the sneaking, the calls, they were like breadcrumbs leading somewhere. I didn't know where yet, but I was following them. Every time Karen yelled at me or wrote something down, I'd tuck it away in my mind. She thought I was just some guy she could boss around, some new kid who didn't matter. But I wasn't. I was watching her, waiting for the right moment. She didn't let up, though. She kept coming, day after day. One time, she said my porch light was flickering. It wasn't, I checked, but she wrote it down anyway. Another time, she said my grass had weeds. I looked, and there was one tiny dandelion. One. She acted like it was a jungle. Every little thing was a violation to her, and she'd march over with that clipboard, telling me I was ruining Elm Street. I'd smile and nod, same as always. "Sure, Karen," I'd say. She'd huff and leave, thinking she'd won. But she hadn't won. Not even close. See, while she was busy running around with her rules, I was busy watching her fall apart. Those scratches on her car? They weren't going away. The sneaking at night? It happened more often, twice in 1 week, then 3 times. And the calls? I started counting them. One day, she made 2 in a row, one about a loud bird, another about a kid's ball rolling into her yard. Too many calls, too many sneaky nights, too many weird little clues. I kept quiet, piecing it all together. Karen thought she was running the show, like she was the star of Elm Street and I was just a nobody in the background. But she was wrong. She was walking right into a trap she didn't even see. I didn't know everything yet, but I knew enough to keep watching. Every yell, every bang on my door, every scribble on her clipboard, it was like she was handing me more pieces to the puzzle. And I was getting close to figuring it out. She didn't suspect a thing. She'd bang on my door and yell, "You're a disgrace," and I'd just smile. She'd write down my violations and think she was so smart. But I was smarter. I saw the scratches. I saw the sneaking. I heard the calls. And I knew something was coming, something big. Karen was too busy bossing me around to notice, but that was fine. It made it easier for me to watch her dig her own hole, one yell at a time. One chilly morning, Karen was at it again. I was outside grabbing my newspaper when she came marching over, her clipboard flapping in the wind. "Your chimney," she shouted. "It's smoking again." I looked up, it was just a tiny wisp of smoke, barely there. The fire was almost out inside. "It's ruining my day," she said, scribbling fast on her paper. I nodded and said, "Okay, Karen, nice and calm." She glared at me, her sunglasses slipping down, then stomped off. I watched her go, thinking about those scratches on her car. They were still there, and they looked deeper now, like someone had scratched it again. That night, I saw her sneak out once more. I was up late, eating a snack by my window, when I caught her slipping out her back door. She had that same dark coat and that bag over her shoulder. She looked around, all twitchy, then hurried off into the dark. I leaned closer to the glass, watching her disappear. Where's she going? I thought. It was the 4th time that week. 4 times. Normal people don't sneak out that much, especially not Karen, who loved telling everyone what she was up to. The next day, she was back with her clipboard. This time, it was about my trash cans. "They're too close to the street," she snapped, pointing at them. "They were right where they always were, by my driveway." "It's a rule," she said. I smiled and said, "I'll move them." I didn't, though. She wrote it down and left, her pen scratching loud enough for me to hear. I watched her walk away, then glanced at her car in the garage. Yup, those scratches were still there. The calls kept coming too. One afternoon, I heard her yelling about a squirrel. "It's an emergency," she told her phone. "It's in my yard." "A squirrel? Really?" I peeked out and saw it, a little brown squirrel, just sitting there eating a nut. Karen was waving her arms, trying to scare it off, while she talked to 911. I shook my head. She was losing it, calling about squirrels and cats and birds. Too many calls. Way too many. I kept watching, quiet as a mouse. Every time she yelled at me, I'd nod and smile. Every time she sneaked out, I'd see it. Every time she made a crazy call, I'd hear it. The pieces were piling up: scratches, sneaking, calls. Karen thought she was the boss, but she was slipping. She didn't know I was onto her. She didn't know I was waiting. She thought she was running the show, but she was walking right into something big, something she couldn't stop. Okay, guys, this is where things get super exciting. You're not gonna believe what happens next. So, picture this: Karen is standing there, all red in the face, yelling about Jake's chimney smoke. She's pointing at his house like it's the biggest problem in the world. She's so sure she's right, and she thinks the police are on her side. But then bam, something wild happens. Before she can even finish her sentence, another police car rolls up. Yep, a second one. The lights on top are flashing red and blue, and it stops right in front of her house. Two more cops step out, and guess what? They don't even look at Jake. Nope, they walk straight toward Karen's house. One of the cops, a tall guy with a serious face, looks at Karen and says, "Ma'am, we need to talk to you." His voice is strong, like he's not messing around. Karen's eyes get big, and she blinks a bunch of times, like she's super confused. "Me," she says, her voice all squeaky. "This is about his smoke. That chimney is breaking the rules." She points at Jake again, trying to make the cops look his way. But the cop just shakes his head, real slow, like he's not buying it. "No, ma'am," he says. "We're not here about the smoke. We got a secret call about something bad happening at your address." "Wait, what?" Jake's mouth drops open. He's standing there by his front door, still holding his hot cocoa mug, and he can't believe what he's hearing. A secret call? About Karen? This is getting juicy. The cop reaches into his pocket and pulls out a piece of paper. It's all official looking, with fancy writing on it. "This is a warrant," he says. Now, if you don't know what a warrant is, it's like a special permission slip that lets the police check someone's house if they think something illegal is going on. And they've got one for Karen's place. Karen's face goes from red to white in, like, 2 seconds. She looks scared now, not mad. "A warrant? For me? That's crazy," she says, her voice shaking. But the cops don't stop. They walk right up to her front door, and one of them says, "Ma'am, step aside, please." Jake can't help it, he leans forward a little, trying to see what's happening. His heart's beating fast because this is way better than any TV show he's ever watched. The cops push open Karen's door and go inside. Jake can hear her yelling from the porch. "This is a mistake. I'm a good neighbor. I don't do anything wrong," she shouts. But the cops aren't listening. They're busy looking around her house. Jake wonders what they're searching for. Is it something small, like a stolen candy bar? Or something big, like a secret treasure? He's got no clue, but he's hooked. He takes a sip of his cocoa, trying to stay calm, but inside he's buzzing with excitement. A few minutes pass, and then it happens, the big reveal. One of the cops comes out of Karen's garage holding a box. It's a plain cardboard box, nothing fancy, but the way he's carrying it makes it seem important. He sets it down on the driveway and opens it up. Inside, a bunch of purses. Like those bags girls carry around with their stuff in them. But these aren't normal purses. The cop holds one up and says, "These are fake. Designer bags, but not real ones." Jake squints to see better. The purse has a big logo on it, like the kind you see in fancy stores, but the cop says it's a knockoff. That means it's a pretend version, not the real deal. Karen's jaw drops now. She looks like she might faint. "Those aren't mine," she yells. "Someone planted them there." But the cop doesn't look convinced. He pulls out another box from the garage, then another, and another. There are tons of these fake purses. Jake can't believe it. Karen, the lady who's always telling everyone else what to do, has been hiding a secret. She's been selling fake designer bags out of her garage. That's against the law because it's like lying to people and taking their money for something that's not real. The neighbors start peeking out now. Mrs. Thompson from next door opens her window a crack. Little Timmy from down the street rides by on his bike, real slow, staring at the cops. Everyone's curious, just like Jake. He's thinking, whoa, Karen's in big trouble now. The cop with the warrant looks at her and says, "Ma'am, we've got proof someone's been selling these here. The call we got said it's been going on for months." Months. Jake's mind is spinning. All this time, Karen's been acting like the perfect neighbor, bossing everyone around, when she's been the one breaking rules. Karen stomps her foot and crosses her arms. "This is ridiculous," she snaps. "I'm calling my lawyer." But the cops don't care. They keep pulling boxes out of her garage. There must be, like, 20 of them. Each one is stuffed with fake purses, pink ones, black ones, shiny ones, all pretending to be super expensive. Jake wonders how she even got them. Did she make them herself? Did she buy them from some sneaky guy in a dark alley? He doesn't know, but it's wild to think about. The tall cop turns to Karen and says, "You're coming with us to answer some questions." Karen's eyes get huge. "What? Me? Go with you? No way," she cries. But the other cop steps closer and says, "Ma'am, you don't have a choice." They gently grab her arms and start walking her toward the police car. She's yelling the whole time. This is all Jake's fault. His smoke made me do it. Jake almost laughs out loud. His smoke? Really? That's the silliest excuse he's ever heard. As the cops put Karen in the back of the car, Jake sees something funny. One of the fake purses falls out of a box and lands on the driveway. It's bright red with a big gold G on it, but the G is crooked, like it's about to fall off. It's so fake looking that Jake wonders how anyone ever bought it. He shakes his head, amazed. Karen, the lady who complained about everything, was the real troublemaker all along. The police car door slams shut, and Karen's still shouting through the window. "You'll hear from my lawyer. This isn't over," she yells. But the cops just get in the front and start the engine. Jake watches as they drive off, lights flashing, with Karen in the back like some kind of movie bad guy. He can't stop grinning. This is the best twist ever. The lady who called 911 on his chimney smoke just got caught for something way worse. Jake looks back at his house. The smoke's still puffing out of his chimney, nice and steady. He thinks about how Karen tried to make a big deal out of it, but now she's the one in trouble. It's almost too perfect. He takes another sip of his cocoa, feeling warm and happy. The cops are still there, packing up the fake purse boxes into their cars. One of them walks over to Jake and says, "Don't worry, sir. This isn't about you. You're good." Jake nods. "Thanks, officer. I figured." As the cop walks away, Jake leans against his doorframe, watching the whole scene. The garage is empty now, except for a few scraps of cardboard. The neighbors are whispering to each other, pointing at Karen's house. Jake bets they'll be talking about this for weeks. Maybe months. And him? He's just glad he gets to enjoy his fireplace in peace. But the best part? Knowing that Karen, the perfect neighbor, wasn't so perfect after all. What a day. Okay, guys, hold on tight because this part is where everything gets wrapped up. It's like the big ending of a movie where the good guys win and the bad guys learn a lesson. So, here's what happened after the cops found all those fake purses in Karen's garage. It was a total mess, boxes everywhere, purses spilling out, and Karen yelling like crazy. Let's dive in. The cops were busy hauling out box after box of those knockoff purses. If you don't know what knockoff means, it's like when something looks real but it's totally fake, like a toy phone that doesn't actually call anyone. These purses had big logos on them, pretending to be super fancy, but they weren't. The cops stacked the boxes in the driveway, one after another, like a tower of secrets Karen couldn't hide anymore. There were so many pink ones, black ones, sparkly ones, all fake. Jake stood by his door, watching it all, and he couldn't believe his eyes. Karen had been caught red-handed. Karen wasn't happy, not one bit. She screeched like a bird that lost its nest. "This is a misunderstanding," she shouted, waving her arms around. "Those aren't mine. Someone put them there to trick me." Her voice was loud, and her face was all red, like a tomato about to pop. But the cops didn't stop. They kept carrying out the boxes, calm as could be, like they'd heard excuses like hers a million times before. One cop even rolled his eyes a little, but he didn't say anything. They had proof, and Karen's yelling wasn't going to change that. The neighbors couldn't stay away. They peeked out from behind their curtains, whispering to each other. Mrs. Thompson, who lived next door, opened her window just a crack and stared. Little Timmy from down the street rode his bike super slow, his mouth open like he was watching a circus. Even old Mr. Jenkins, who never left his porch, shuffled out with his cane to see what was going on. Everyone was buzzing, like bees around a hive. "Did you hear?" they whispered. "Karen's in trouble." Jake could hear bits and pieces, and it made him grin. This was big news. Jake leaned against his door frame, still holding his mug of hot cocoa. It was cold now, but he didn't care. He was too busy watching the show. The cops put Karen in the back of their squad car, the police car with the flashing lights. She didn't go quietly. "This is wrong. You'll hear from my lawyer," she yelled, banging on the window. But the cops just shut the door and got in the front. Jake couldn't help it, he grinned even bigger. "Guess the smoke wasn't the real problem," he said to the first cop, the one who'd talked to him earlier. The cop chuckled, a little laugh like he thought it was funny too. "Nope," he said. "Not even close." The police car drove off with Karen inside, lights flashing all the way down the street. The other cops stayed behind to load up the boxes of fake purses into their cars. There were so many boxes, it took a long time. Jake counted at least 25, maybe more. Each one was stuffed full of those silly knockoffs. He wondered how long Karen had been doing this. Weeks. Months. Maybe even years? She'd always acted so perfect, like she was better than everyone else, but now the truth was out. She wasn't perfect, she was sneaky. As the cops finished up, the neighborhood got quiet again. The boxes were gone, the cars drove away, and Karen's house looked empty. Her garage door was still open, and Jake could see it was a mess inside, cardboard bits and tape all over the floor. It was like a storm had hit, but only in her garage. Jake shook his head and went back inside. He tossed his cold cocoa in the sink and made a new cup. The fireplace was still going, crackling and popping, sending little puffs of smoke up the chimney. He smiled. His chimney was fine, and Karen couldn't do a thing about it now. The next day was Sunday, and things were pretty calm. Jake mowed his lawn and waved at the neighbors like usual. But everyone was still talking about Karen. Mrs. Thompson came over with some cookies, she was nice like that, and said, "Can you believe it? Karen selling fake bags. I never would have guessed." Jake took a cookie and nodded. "Me neither," he said. "She sure fooled us all." Mrs. Thompson laughed. "Well, good riddance to her rules. Maybe we can all relax a little now." Jake liked that idea. Relaxing sounded perfect. Then Monday came, and that's when the real fun started. Jake checked his mailbox, and there it was, a letter from the HOA. That's the group that makes all the neighborhood rules, the one Karen used to boss around. He ripped it open and read it fast. The letter said, "Dear residents, we regret to inform you that Karen Phillips is no longer on the HOA board. Due to recent events, she has been removed. Please note that fireplaces and chimneys are allowed, as long as they follow city rules. Thank you." Jake pumped his fist in the air. Yes. Karen was off the board, and his chimney was officially no one's business. He ran inside and taped the letter to his fridge, like a trophy. It felt so good. All that time, Karen had been picking on him, texting him mean stuff, and calling the cops over a little smoke. Now she was gone, and he could enjoy his fireplace whenever he wanted. He lit it up that night, just because he could. The flames danced, and the smoke floated up, nice and steady. He sat on his couch with his cocoa, feeling warm inside and out. The neighborhood felt different too, like a big weight was gone. The days after that were awesome. Neighbors started talking to each other more. Little Timmy rode his bike faster, like he wasn't scared of Karen yelling at him anymore. Mrs. Thompson planted some flowers in her yard, even though Karen used to say they were too bright. Mr. Jenkins sat on his porch longer, sipping lemonade and waving at everyone. It was like the whole street took a deep breath and said, "Finally." Jake loved it. He'd always liked his neighbors, but now they felt like friends, not just people who lived nearby. One afternoon, Jake saw something funny. A moving truck pulled up to Karen's house. Big guys in overalls started carrying out furniture, a couch, a table, even that ugly lamp she kept in her window. Jake watched from his yard, pretending to rake leaves. Was she moving? He asked Mrs. Thompson later, and she nodded. Yep, she said. Heard she's leaving. Too embarrassed to stay, I guess. Jake wasn't surprised. After all that, who'd want to stick around? The truck drove off, and Karen's house went quiet. No more yelling, no more mean texts, no more fake purses. Jake wondered where she'd go. Maybe somewhere far away, where no one knew her. He didn't feel bad for her, though. She'd been mean to everyone, always acting like she was the boss. Now she had to face the mess she made. That's what happens when you're sneaky and get caught. A week later, the HOA had a meeting. Jake went because he was curious. It was in the community center, a little building with folding chairs and a coffee pot. Everyone sat down, and the new HOA leader, a nice lady named Ms. Carter, stood up. Hi, everyone, she said. I know things have been wild lately. But we're starting fresh. No more silly rules, just the basics to keep things safe and fun. People clapped, even Jake. Ms. Carter smiled. And if anyone has a fireplace, enjoy it. No complaints allowed unless it's a real problem. More clapping. Jake felt like cheering. After the meeting, people hung out and chatted. They ate cookies and drank coffee, laughing about Karen's fake purses. Can you imagine? Mr. Jenkins said. Selling those crooked bags right under our noses. Timmy's mom giggled. I bet she thought she'd never get caught. Jake nodded. She almost did, he said. But not quite. Everyone laughed, and it felt good, like they were all in on the joke together. Jake walked home that night, looking at the stars. His chimney smoke floated up, mixing with the cool air. He thought about how crazy it all was. One day, Karen was the queen of the neighborhood, bossing everyone around. The next, she was gone, and everyone was free. It was like a fairy tale, but real. He decided he'd keep his fireplace going all winter, just because he could. No one could stop him now. The neighborhood stayed happy after that. Kids played outside more. People said hi over their fences. Jake even had a barbecue one weekend, and tons of neighbors came. They ate hot dogs and told stories, and someone brought up Karen again. Remember her face when the cops showed up? Mrs. Thompson said, and everyone cracked up. Jake grinned. Best day ever, he said. And it really was. So, that's how it all ended. Karen got caught, the fake purses were gone, and justice was served. She couldn't boss anyone anymore, and Jake's chimney? It was free to puff away. The neighborhood felt lighter, like a big storm had passed. And Jake? He just kept smiling, knowing he'd won without even trying. What a wild ride. All right, friends, let's sit back and think about this wild story for a minute. Isn't it crazy how life can turn upside down so fast? 1 second, someone like Karen is acting all high and mighty, pointing fingers at everyone else, thinking she's the best. She's out there yelling about Jake's chimney smoke, sure she's untouchable, like nothing can stop her. And then bam, the next minute, everything flips. Her own sneaky mess comes crashing down, and she's the one in trouble. It's like a magic trick you didn't see coming, right? Life is full of surprises like that. Think about it. Karen had those perfect lawns, that big smile, and all her HOA rules. She looked like she had it all together, like she was the boss of everything. But behind her neat little house, she was hiding something big, those fake purses. She probably thought no one would ever find out. She'd just keep bossing people around, and her secret would stay safe. But secrets don't stay hidden forever, do they? Nope. They pop out when you least expect it, like a jack in the box. And when hers popped, boy, did it make a mess. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Who else is hiding stuff behind their perfect lawns? Maybe not fake purses, but something. Maybe the kid who's always bragging about his toys doesn't really have that many. Or the lady who's super nice to everyone is secretly grumpy at home. You never know what's going on behind closed doors. People can look one way on the outside like they've got everything figured out, but inside, it's a whole different story. That's why this tale about Jake and Karen is so cool. It shows us that things aren't always what they seem. And here's the best part, the quiet ones, like Jake, sometimes see it all. Jake wasn't loud or bossy. He didn't run around telling everyone what to do. He just lived his life, sipping his cocoa, enjoying his fireplace. He didn't fight with Karen or try to get her in trouble. He just watched, stayed calm, and let things happen. And guess what? He ended up with the best view of the chaos. While Karen was yelling and the cops were pulling out boxes, Jake was right there, seeing the truth unfold. Quiet doesn't mean weak, it can mean smart and strong in its own way. So, what can we take from this? Stay curious, friends. Don't just believe everything you see. That perfect kid at school? Maybe he's not so perfect. That grumpy teacher? Maybe she's got a good reason. Keep your eyes open and ask questions. You don't have to be loud or pushy, just watch and listen. The world's full of surprises, and if you're paying attention, you might catch them before anyone else does. Jake did, and it made all the difference. This story's got a big lesson too, the truth always comes out. Karen thought she could hide her fake purse game forever, but nope. It crashed down on her like a big wave at the beach. And when it did, she couldn't boss anyone anymore. Jake got to keep his chimney, the neighbors got to relax, and everything felt fair again. It's like life has a way of fixing itself, making sure the sneaky ones don't win in the end. That's pretty cool, huh? It means if you're honest and chill, like Jake, things might just work out for you. Let's think about ourselves for a sec. Are we like Karen, pointing fingers and acting big? Or are we like Jake, staying cool and letting the truth show itself? I say let's be Jakes. Let's enjoy our own fireplaces, whatever makes us happy, and not worry about bossing everyone else. Life's too short to be mad about little things like smoke. Plus, when you're kind and quiet, you get to sit back and watch the wild stuff happen, just like Jake did. That sounds way more fun, right? So, here's my big finish for you: stay curious and keep being you. The world's a funny place, sometimes it flips, sometimes it flops, but it always keeps going. Don't judge people too fast, because you never know what's hiding behind their perfect lawns. And don't be afraid to be the quiet one. The Jakes of the world might not make a lot of noise, but they've got the best seats for the show. Who knows? Maybe the next big surprise is right around the corner, and you'll be the one smiling when it hits. Keep your eyes open, friends, you don't want to miss it.